Hello to all Cinemaster lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The story begins with a submarine at the bottom of the sea, opening a very old box covered with rocks. At the same moment, a ship is lowering large cylinders into the sea, and suddenly the chains holding the cylinders break, causing them to fall on the submarine and kill the diver. When the box opens, a strange wooden mask emerges and floats to the surface of the sea. Meanwhile, we see an employee named Stanley talking to his friend Maki, who works with him at the same bank. Their friend Charlie joins them, chatting and laughing together. At that moment, a beautiful woman named Tina enters the bank. Charlie directs her to Stanley's desk to open a new bank account. Tina tries to seduce and attract Stanley's attention because she has a hidden camera in her bag to film the bank's main vault. Elsewhere, the footage of the bank is displayed on a TV screen, and we learn that Dorian and Freeze are part of a gang planning to rob the bank. They watch the footage and start using Tina to gather information for their plan. Freeze insists that the gang leader must approve the plan before execution, but Dorian declares that he will become the new leader and carry out the plan himself. Later, Stanley goes to a car repair workshop to pick up his car, only to find that it hasn't been fixed yet. The mechanic gives him another car to use temporarily. That night, Stanley drives the temporary car, which is a wreck, to a nightclub. Charlie bribes the bouncer, Bobby, to let them in, but the bouncer prevents Stanley from entering and throws him onto the street. At this moment, Tina arrives and sees Stanley standing embarrassed at the club entrance because of his car. He quickly drives off, but the car breaks down on a bridge. He gets out and starts walking when he suddenly notices a body floating on the surface of the water. He rushes down to rescue it, only to discover it's just a skeleton. Suddenly, he sees the strange wooden mask, becomes fascinated by it, and takes it with him. When he arrives home soaking wet, his neighbor scolds him for dirtying the carpet outside her apartment door. Inside his apartment, we see that he lives alone with his dog, Milo. As Stanley watches TV, a psychologist named Dr. Norman appears, discussing how people wear fake masks to hide their true selves. Stanley notices Milo barking at the mask and starts looking at it strangely. When he brings it close to his face, the mask sticks to him, and suddenly Stanley spins around the room like a whirlwind. Milo hides under the bed in fear. Stanley transforms into a bizarre and comedic character with a completely green face, becoming the Mask. He heads to his neighbor's apartment, pulling out a ticking clock from his pocket. The clock makes a noise, so the Mask smashes it with a wooden hammer and then breaks it on the ground. The frightened neighbor grabs a gun and fires at him, but the Mask dodges the bullets and falls out the window onto the street, flattening like paper. However, he quickly recovers and walks away. While wandering the streets, a gang tries to rob him, but he escapes into an alley. The gang chases him, but the Mask performs a balloon show, amusing them like children. However, he suddenly turns a balloon into a machine gun and fires at them, scaring them off. The Mask then goes to the car workshop to confront the mechanic for neglecting Stanley's car. The next morning, Stanley wakes up, thinking everything was a dream, but he is shocked when Detective Mitch visits his apartment to investigate the previous night's disturbances. Stanley denies hearing any noise, but when the detective explains what happened, Stanley realizes it was all real. Running late for work, Stanley throws the mask out the window before leaving, but the mask mysteriously returns to his apartment without his knowledge. Meanwhile, the police and paramedics arrive at the workshop to assist the injured mechanic. A journalist named Becky tries to uncover the cause of the incident, but is pulled away. At work, Charlie asks Stanley where he was the previous night, but Stanley avoids answering. The manager scolds Stanley for being late. Becky, the journalist, visits Stanley, asking about the workshop incident. She finds him charming and gives him her number before leaving. Dorian meets with the gang leader, Nico, who warns him to leave the city. If he doesn't, Nico threatens to kill him. That night, Stanley sees an advertisement in the newspaper for Tina's performance at a nightclub. He decides to wear the mask and transforms into the Mask. Finding his wallet empty, he wonders how to get money. Meanwhile, Freeze and his gang try to rob the bank's main vault. Before they can enter, the Mask appears, spinning through the streets and stealing large bags of money. The gang is stunned, realizing their plan has failed. The police arrive, and the Mask escapes in a luxury car, heading to the nightclub where Tina is performing. He throws money as he enters, amazed by Tina's beauty as she sings. He approaches the band, commanding them to change the music and dances with Tina. Freeze arrives at the club, telling Dorian that someone beat them to robbing the bank. Furious, Dorian notices the Mask and points him out as the thief. One of the gang members shoots at the Mask, hitting his tie and causing a small piece of fabric to fall to the floor. Pretending to die, the Mask humorously dodges Dorian's bullets while jumping around the club. In the meantime, the police, along with Detective Mitch, arrive and arrest Doreen. During this time, Mitch notices a piece of fabric left on the ground and realizes it belongs to Stanley. The next morning, Stanley wakes up wearing different pajamas. Shortly after, Mitch arrives and knocks on Stanley's apartment door. Stanley, trying to change his clothes quickly, opens his wardrobe, and the money he stole from the bank falls out. He hurriedly puts it back before opening the door for the detective. Mitch questions him about the bank robbery and the masked man, but Stanley denies knowing anything about either. Suddenly, Milo, Stanley's dog, starts barking at the wardrobe containing the stolen money. Stanley quickly pulls him away to prevent Mitch from opening it. Later, at the police station, Mitch and the officer review surveillance footage of the robbery and see the masked man. They begin investigating the incident. Meanwhile, Doreen offers a $50,000 reward to anyone who captures the masked man. He also questions Tina about him, as she had danced with the masked man previously. The police and detectives investigate the bank while Stanley arrives late to work. The manager scolds him for being an hour late, but for the first time, Stanley stands up to him, demanding respect. The manager is shocked by Stanley's reaction and backs off. At the same time, Tina arrives at the bank and Stanley takes her upstairs. Tina asks him about the masked man, expressing her admiration for his personality and her desire to see him again. Stanley admits he knows the masked man and promises to let her meet him. Stanley visits Dr. Norman, bringing the mask with him. Dr. Norman examines the mask and concludes it is ancient and linked to an old civilization. Stanley tries to demonstrate its magical properties by wearing it, but the doctor doesn't believe him and thinks Stanley is crazy. Dr. Norman suspects Stanley and the masked man are the same person. Later, Stanley takes a taxi while Mitch and Officer Donald secretly follow him, suspecting him. They continue to watch him from a distance until nightfall. Stanley and Tina sit in a park, where Stanley tells her he must leave before the masked man arrives. Suddenly, the masked man appears and begins harassing Tina. She becomes frightened and admits she doesn't like him as much as she thought. When the police arrive, the masked man tries to escape but freezes himself. At the news station, a manager tells reporter Becky that the police have captured the masked man. Becky convinces the manager to let her investigate and write about the case. Back at the park, the police search the masked man and find strange, magical items in his pockets, including a photo of Mitch's wife. The masked man tricks the officers by transferring his handcuffs to Mitch and the detective, then quickly escapes the park, locking the gate behind him. Surrounded by police cars, he changes his clothes and starts singing and dancing, compelling the police to join him. Mitch and Donald climb over the park fence and chase after him, but the masked man escapes to an abandoned location. Stanley removes the mask. Becky arrives in her car and picks up Stanley. The police start shooting at them, but Becky drives away quickly, avoiding the bullets. Becky and Stanley hide in a newspaper storage room, where they talk until Doreen arrives. It's revealed that Doreen had made a deal with Becky to hand over Stanley in exchange for the $50,000 reward. The gang takes Stanley to a printing press and tortures him, trying to uncover the secret of the mask's powers. Doreen decides to wear the mask himself, transforming completely. He plans to use the mask for evil purposes. Meanwhile, the gang goes to Stanley's apartment and takes the stolen bank money. Milo, noticing his friend tied up in their car, jumps down from the apartment and follows them. The gang ties Stanley up and throws him in front of the police station. Unfortunately, Mitch arrests Stanley and locks him in jail. Milo waits outside the prison, determined to help. Tina visits Stanley in jail and tells him she loves him for who he is, not as the masked man. As she leaves, the gang follows her. Stanley watches from his cell window as Doreen takes Tina in his car. Stanley desperately asks Milo for help. After several attempts, Milo jumps through the cell window, retrieves the guard's keys while he's asleep, and frees Stanley. They escape, taking the guard's gun. When Mitch arrives, Stanley handcuffs him to the dog and rushes to save Tina. Meanwhile, at the nightclub owned by the gang leader Nico, the city mayor and important politicians gather for a charity event for war orphans. Charlie is there, enjoying the evening. Suddenly, Doreen, wearing the mask, breaks in with the gang. A confrontation ensues, and Nico shoots at Doreen, but the bullets have no effect. Doreen catches the bullets in his mouth and spits them back at Nico, killing him. Stanley arrives at the nightclub and begins fighting the gang. He notices Tina tied to a tree with a bomb set to explode in 10 minutes. The gang captures Stanley and takes him to Doreen. Milo sneaks into the nightclub and sees Tina convincing Doreen to kiss her one last time before she dies. When Doreen removes the mask to kiss her, Tina punches him, and the mask flies away. Milo grabs the mask and puts it on, transforming into a masked dog. Stanley tries to free Tina but is stopped by Doreen. Milo, now wearing the mask, helps Stanley by attacking the gang. Stanley retrieves the mask from Milo and puts it on, transforming once again. The masked Stanley pulls out fake weapons, scaring the gang into fleeing. Tina warns him that the bomb is about to explode. The masked Stanley quickly swallows the bomb and it explodes in the belly of the masked man. Dorian emerges and tries to hit the masked man, but he fails. Dorian tries to alert Stanley, but the masked man draws the key of the water, pulling Dorian underground. At this point, Stanley removes the mask after getting rid of Dorian. At that moment, the police arrive and arrest the gang. Outside the club, Mitch tries to arrest Stanley, but suddenly the mayor appears. Mitch tells the mayor to arrest Stanley because he is the masked man who caused all this damage. However, the mayor tells him that the masked man is Dorian, and he saw it with his own eyes. He declares Stanley the heroic savior because he rescued them from Dorian and the gang, and he also saved Tina from death. Here, we see Tina, Charlie, Stanley, and Milo riding in a car. Tina throws the mask into the sea and hugs Stanley, but Charlie becomes greedy for the mask and jumps after it. Milo jumps before him and grabs it, preventing Charlie from approaching it. We realize that Stanley lives happily ever after with his beloved Tina. And here is the end of the movie. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates.